Hey there, thanks for tuning in to our feature teacher jam session. Conversations grounded in highlighting the greatest tools in our toolbox, educators and youth advocates, fired up with art, skill, and will. I'm Jay Dion, and after many years as a teacher, administrator, and instructional coach, no matter what age you rock with, what content you're passionate about, what population you serve, I'm curious where we can reinvite creativity back into the work, what it looks like to centralize interactions as foundational to language, character, and content development, and how we can leverage the autonomy of fantastic educators doing this work worth doing. The Learning Riot is a movement committed to championing, challenging, and supporting teachers as you build rigorous and responsive learning communities where language, executive function skills, and critical stewardship are developed. Stoked to have you join the riot, you little rascal. Let's jump in. As you practice reflection, I forgot that I'd written this question in and of itself, but it's so good for us to do this.
I think it's really important, and it made me really think about some things.
So, as you practice reflection, what is a bias that you still struggle with, and how are you working on dismantling that bias? We all have them. And
Yes.
steer clear of the person who says they have no bias.
Right.
Because that's just not possible.
It's impossible. Yeah. My personal biggest bias is the rich kids. And I really believe that is born out of growing up poor and having this perception, and also hearing a lot in my home about how people who have money have so much more this or this or this. And while money does create access in a lot of ways, development is not necessarily different when you're rich or when you're poor.
Of course.
If you're rich, it doesn't mean you're smart, or it doesn't mean that you don't have an abusive home life.
Yeah.
Or all these other things.
Right.
And I think
can equate rich with access and poor with trauma.
Yes.
Often flipped.
Yeah. And I think I find myself sometimes like getting really frustrated with students who I know come from, better means than other students, and like they're not willing to put in the work, and I just label them in my mind as being like really entitled, and then I have to really, really work hard to check myself on that.
Yeah.
As recently as this past school year, there are students whose parents have money, and it doesn't mean that they have money. And we've just created so many systems that perpetrate that. Like FAFSA's, your parents could make $1 million a year and they might not give you a dime for education.
So all of a sudden you're like, oh.
Right.
Right.
But so yeah. And
that being said, you're now down to $800,000 a year. Right. So still got money, but yes, I know what you mean though.
So the dismantling piece is still hard for me.
But how do we, we talked about this, so going back to critical hope though, we talk about sort of seeing where a kid is.
Yep.
Building skills.
Yep.
And then recruiting their agency. I almost would encourage, I think that seeing the socioeconomic and political context of their life and calling it.
Yeah.
And then saying some of the skills you're going to need to build, some of which are going to be the resilience and grit that you haven't had to build.
Right.
Because life has existed in a way that you haven't had to build those things. You're going to need to.
Yeah.
And then how do I help you with that? Like, I feel like you can face that bias. I almost feel like that bias need not be private.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, talk to them that like your behavior and the way you aren't judging a rich kid. I mean, for lack of a better way, you're not judging a rich kid who shows great empathy, shows compassion, shows hard work, resilience, all those things.
Right.
You're judging the kid who doesn't have resilience and you're like, okay, and it's probably because you've
Mhm.
had a lot of things given to you or handed to you. I mean, we're making a lot of generalizations here,
Right,
obviously.
right.
So I think that deprivatizing it and calling it what it is, I think it's completely fine.
Yeah, and I'm working a lot on just recognizing when I'm doing that and kind of taking the steps back in my own mind to think about why that student really is
Mm.
behaving or choosing or doing whatever it is, as opposed to um, just like letting that happen and not thinking about it.
Just make sure
Um,
it's still recording. We're good.
I think that I consider myself a pretty reflective practitioner.
Very much so.
I'm always thinking about the way things have gone and thinking about how things could be better, and trying to put a little bit more focus on that bias piece
Mm.
of like, you know, just every student just shows up with the bag that they've been given.
Yep. And student in this case, they are underage or
Hmm.
at age, like they're kids.
Yeah,
They're kids.
they've lived on the planet. One thing that you really
Oh,
changed my life with in the past year is whoever you're whoever you're teaching, whoever shows up in your classroom, they only have the amount of years that they've been alive as experience.
yeah.
So if you're teaching 10-year-olds, they only have
Mhm.
10 years of
It's
experience.
unbelievable. And I will see teachers that will say they should know this by now. And I
Yeah.
want to say, wait. So that person who's been on Earth for 10 years should have the ability to A, B, and C and self-regulate and identify when and blah, 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 whatever it
Yeah.
is, that I sometimes look at the adult and want to say, do you have all those skills at
Well,
40?
and
Right?
that's what has changed my life and my perspective on these exact things. It's like I am expecting
Mm,
so much out of my own children
yep.
who are 10, 15, and 17.
Yep.
I am expecting so much out of them when they have 10 years, 15 years, and 17 years of experience.
Yep.
And I still struggle with certain things that
Totally.
they're struggling with. So if I'm struggling with it and that's what I'm modeling for them, how can they be more advanced than I am?
Yeah, but this does not diminish the
No,
need for skill
the need
building,
for it.
the need for like we're going to get
Yes.
down and dirty, but I don't
Yep.
expect you to have nailed this at
Yeah.
15 years, especially 15 to 17 in the
Yep.
teenage years where the brain is actually turning itself inside and out, like
Right.
uniquely. All right, so thank you. So, and I think that we never stop dismantling bias,
Yeah.
and that bias is our first language.
Mm-hmm.
But we sit there as reflective practitioners and kind of identify that. I have it as well.
Work on it all the time.
So, we're going to step back in, and you alluded to it earlier because we are going to step back into vulnerability for a second, and not necessarily the specifics of vulnerability, but knowing, especially you and I, that we share vulnerability, our fears, our strengths. Like
Mhm.
we're really into that, and we have seen that go well in
Right.
building community. Is there a level of vulnerability where you draw the line? And if so, where is that line? And has that changed over the last 12 years specifically? Do you share more, less, differently?
I would say that line has changed. I think I share far more now than I did in the beginning.
Hmm.
And I think in the beginning, I in mentorship and PD and all of that, and people saying like, you need to be firm but friendly, and you need to be careful what you share with students. And I think I've learned over the years that it's not always be careful what you share with students,
Mm.
but in how and when.
Yeah, and
So
the when is important as well there.
right, like it's more about appropriate timing
Mm.
and appropriate like aligning it to what they're struggling with,
So
or
good.
aligning it to like a concept that you're trying to teach, rather than just, dumping on kids every day about what you're going through. It's
Yeah, and
not their job to
you have
be
me
your
thinking about the
reference.
when.
Yeah.
I was watching something the other day about making sure you own your own trauma, your own sort of
Hmm.
your own story,
Yep.
because seldom is it the other person's responsibility to like address and handle and address your trauma or your,
Right.
your experience. I was thinking about like, you know how I shared earlier about basically having a thing that I want them to work on.
Yep.
Emotionally, like in terms of social emotional learning or executive skills. And then I will reserve the next day to do that. It's different than me in the moment when a kid's being frustrated, me saying something like, oh my God, this morning I'm here, I'm here. I dropped my stupid daughter off and I this or that, or da da da, and now I'm here with you and this is how you're acting. Like,
Right.
very different than the next day coming back to a conversation with them and saying, I just want to share as we restore what came up for me yesterday that was especially triggering.
Yeah.
I had earlier in the day had this, and this, and the interaction with you really impacted me and left me very frustrated. Very different. Obviously, we can't always do this. And you as a mother are probably like, yeah, tell that to me. But like aligning it with a when, I think is a really important thing. I love that you phrased it like that. Aligning it with the when and the what it's related to.
Right.
I'm not telling you about some random experience I had at 12 that has nothing to do, but am I going to share with a 10-year-old that when I was 10, I went up on stage at graduation and peed my pants on stage in front of the whole school, like and that's a thing. That's a real thing that happened.
That's a real happening.
I'm not randomly sharing that,
Right.
but I'm sharing it with a student who's trying to process something that greatly embarrassed them. Like it's aligned specifically.
Yes.
And I'm doing it at a time where it's safe and we're talking quietly and kind of, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so huge. Vulnerability. I think that, yeah, what is it? What is it said? Like vulnerability is the courage to show up authentic.
Mm.
I think that's a pretty cool way of looking at it, that it's not weak at
No.
all. It's full. Like it's sort of this fullness.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me explain the next. The fifth of the tenets is anchor, activate, actualize. So in my opinion, any kind of good unit, maybe not even in the day's lesson, but in the overarching unit, that we're anchoring the knowledge. We're thinking about that, but kind of creating a bucket in which it lives. We're activating the thought, so we're getting them to grapple with that, and then we're actualizing the skill, that we're actually putting it into practice. So how do you invite all students into the anchoring, especially those with less previous exposure? So basically, those that need to have some level of prior knowledge activated, building a background, things like that. But you have one kid that has great access to it, and you have another kid who has zero, hasn't even heard of the language before.
Right.
What does that look like? Like, how do you decide how to do that with a kid? Every class is going to have a wealth of that spectrum, right?
I think I'm super lucky because of the nature of what I teach.
Okay.
I teach medical occupations. It's a like healthcare focused class for students who want junior and senior students mostly who want to work in the healthcare field.
Got it.
And
so they already have, like going into it, they have a little bit of information about this that entices them to want to even be there in the first place.
Right. And everyone that shows up to my classroom has had at least one interaction with healthcare.
True.
Whether it be, they had to have their appendix out, or they were in a car accident, or they've just had their wild child checkups their whole life.
Right.
So I think for me, building that background, that anchoring is kind of simple in a way. So for me, I have to be maybe more mindful of it sometimes, because I'm assuming that, when I talk about vaccines, everyone's like, okay, I know what a vaccine is. But they know that a vaccine is a shot.
Right.
But not necessarily what it does, why it does what it does, how, all the things.
Not to mention also the complexities of what different populations, different people believe about vaccines, things like that. So there's always a way to build background.
Yes. And so I think for me, it's accessing that personal experience with whatever the topic is.
Yep.
And bringing into it the fact that, yes, you have this background knowledge or experience, but your experience isn't everyone else's experience. Because I think in particular in the adolescent stage of development, kids either are they are generally, stereotypically, I guess you could say, in a bucket where everyone's going to feel the way I do, or no one could possibly feel the way I do. So trying to help them,
The
right,
binary versus the grayness.
right, and trying to help them be in the grayness more, because from the practitioner side of that,
Hmm.
you are you are delivering to the grayness,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It's so interesting you say, like, I was talking about in a recent class, like, we need to move away from having the reg ed kid and the special ed kid, or the kid who has no language and the kid who has all the language, or like, and really moving toward exceptionality as expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean you are differentiating for 20 kids. Like, you're not going into a class building on vital signs for your next unit and doing 20 differentiations. That's not reasonable, that's not sustainable, and it's not really helpful, because getting all the kids to the same exact place by day 2 of a lesson or a unit is not the goal. The goal is to
No.
get them somewhere by the end of that, and maybe
Right.
not all of them are going to be at that same place, but they sure as heck are going to have made major growth from wherever their start place
Zero.
was. Obviously, we need to be mindful of benchmarks and getting to a place and having some kind of a calibrated thing.
For sure.
But you got to build on where they are. So how do you ground? Again, you sort of a little bit have a cheat here with nursing with CNA, because it is so real world and
Mhm.
everything is so, like, you can bring it right back to the body within a
Right.
second, and like, it's everything
Right.
is so accessible. But how do you ground application in relevance so that basically students buy into the vulnerability of application? Like in other classes that are not your class, I'll be trying to build interaction, or I'll be trying to build kids being willing to do something. And that's scary for kids to, like,
Yeah.
be, in the thing. So it's really cool that I get to watch from your first year class to your second year class. By the second year class, they just have so much less fear, and they really are, it's a community. I mean, it's kind of how
It
the
is.
looping of 2 years is really pretty
Yeah.
gorgeous for those kids. So how do you, like, what lived experiences in your own, is there a way that you might be able to share, like, a lived experience from your own perspective that you kind of bring into the classroom to help them better understand relevance? Like, it's hard to explain it, because I think your class really is it lends
It's a
itself.
gift.
Yeah, I mean, it
It's
really
such a
is.
gift. It really.
But do you ever have kids kind of like, why are we learning this? Or why do we have to learn this? Or, I mean, you don't have that common in the math or science as it is traditionally, complaining, but I'm sure there's kids that come in and they're like, why are we learning this? Or why do we have to do this way?
Yes, and
And how do you get them to buy into, like, it's relevant, I promise you.
so I've in the empathy piece, we had talked about before, trying to get students, or not trying, you do it or you don't, um, practicing on each other. And
Mm.
why do I have to have my teeth brushed?
Mm.
Because you need to know what that feels like.
To have somebody else's hand in your mouth,
Right.
or at your mouth.
And there's just no way they're brushing your teeth exactly like you brush your teeth.
Yeah.
Or the other one that they push back on a lot is foot care. I hate feet. I don't want anyone to touch my feet. It's ticklish to touch my feet, or blah blah. Just all these other things. Or I had a student that had a foot deformity that
Yes.
we had to work through, and the conversation with that student was like, okay, I can totally understand where you're coming from.
Mhm.
That you've had embarrassment around this, and however, I want you to think about this as a gift that you're able to provide
Mhm.
to the student that gets to work with you, because
They're going to see a deformity or some abnormality on somebody else, and
and it
you're going to make sure that they do not have a response
mhm,
that leaves that person feeling shameful. And going back to critical hope, with that person who has that abnormality, you're seeing them where they are,
mhm,
you're identifying the skills that need to be built,
yeah,
and then recruiting their agency. You're literally building critical hope within
right.
that process, which is really cool.
And so those are the moments that you can talk about, like the gift that you get to give someone else by being vulnerable.
Hmm.
Their learning experience is now accelerated or enhanced
Mm-hmm.
because of that experience.
Yeah.
Um,
You and I talk about that a lot in your class, like the importance of kind of watching your face.
mm-hmm,
You know what I mean? Whether it's something that you
yep,
don't know about, or whether you're delivering news to a family,
mm-hmm,
and how do you change your language? Like, you are the representative of their feeling safe.
yeah.
And, like, so watch your face. right? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of that is the
Watch your
lesson.
face, watch your tone. The other thing that I thought a lot about with this question was about medical terminology,
Yeah.
and that is this specific language that you need to be proficient in. Because when the doctor comes down and you're rounding on a patient, so you're all talking about the care group gets together, you're talking about the patient to make the plan and to make sure everyone's on the same page. If they're sitting there and they're rattling off things and you have no idea what they're saying, it's because you didn't apply yourself with the medical terminology piece of the course.
Yeah. And
And
they don't have time to do it. Well, we do not want anybody throwing a scalpel at the
right.
door. You can also respect that they don't have a lot of time to slow down the language.
And you don't have a lot of time to
Yeah.
then go to your phone
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and and that's another thing about like kids ask about putting away their phones and putting away their computers. Well, I'm always going to have a resource. Sure, you are. But when you're having a one-on-one conversation
Hmm.
with a patient that's trying to get you to decode what that doctor
If
just
you bring
said,
it out of the
if you're like, you know what, hold on, let me look that up, and you've got to scroll through your phone to figure out what the heck they just said, where's the safety in that?
hmm I just want to identify quickly because you hear Christina referencing the phone. I love one of the clock in, basically the clock in some other classes, they might call it do now or on time tasks or something like that. But she has that one of the major things is change
Clock
scrubs,
in, change up, get to
change
work.
up and get to work. And the clock in is drop off your phone, boom, there's a little sort of contraption on the wall and the kids get started. And it's kind of like you clocked in, you get paid or you don't get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Basically you're on the hospital's time
Yep.
when you walk into this classroom. So I love that. I love that you're referencing that with a phone. You're just not gonna
You
you don't want
don't.
don't look the fool. Don't sit there in
No.
front of this person who's just heard from the doctor something confusing. His wife is freaking out, he's freaking out, and then you have to look up on your phone. Come on.
And then
Like
you're freaking out because you don't,
yeah, no.
you know, and I just think that language piece is so important because it is that being able to decode for the patient, it helps you to be able to think faster on your feet.
Mhm.
And if God forbid it's not routine care, it becomes an emergency situation, don't have the time.
Yeah. And I know that you have shared with kids. I've been there. We've actually written scenarios
Yeah.
together. You've been there. I've been there seeing you sharing with kids where you have in your past made mistakes that are mistakes you can never
Mm-hmm.
fix. Um, and sharing that with them really builds that relevance,
Yeah, but let them know that, you're gonna make mistakes. It's what you do with those mistakes or how you deal with your emotions at the time of different things that really matters.
And the harder you work in these moments where we are practicing, the better you're going to be in your muscle memory, in your,
Hmm.
in your encoding
When it's real
when
deal.
it's real. So interestingly, so talking about real deal, just a few more questions here, Kristina
Yay.
Lewis, and putting you through the ringer on this first of my formals. So the sixth tenet of the Learning Riot is hands-on, heads-on application. By the way, I made up that term. I love it. Hands-on, heads-on. Like, come
Hmm.
on. Like we're all here. I'm like, I love it. So hands-on, heads-on application extends student growth beyond our care. So this
Mm.
idea that we are not building them for right now, we are
No.
building them for who they have yet to become. Like we are actually within these four walls. The school is the practice for what has yet to happen outside of these walls.
Hmm.
So, what scaffolds do you put in place so that language develops and bolsters interactions, especially when so many of your experiences are about them in small groups and threes
Hmm.
and twos and fours, like doing work and grappling? How do you set them up to be successful in those interactions? And how do you, like the big thing, how do you make sure they know that they are co carrying this and they're responsible for co carrying the lift of this work?
Yeah.
Walk us through that.
Um, this is a work in progress for me in particular related to the co-carrying. I think I've always communicated to students that learning is not learning of the information is not my job.
Hmm.
Teaching the information is my job. The learning is your job.
Hmm.
And I'm going to help you and we're going to do things in lots of different ways so that you can get it in a way that makes sense to you.
Hmm.
But the learning is your job.
You just blew my mind. The fact that I'm an instructional coach, teacher for this many years, and just phrasing the separation of the teaching and the learning. That just blew my mind that that is the thing that every teacher should say to their students the first day of school. This is my, it's kind of like, I feel like we're looking at like Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey from Dirty Dancing. And it's like, this is my space, this is your space, spaghetti arms. Remember that whole scene?
I don't, but I'm terrible with remembering movies, so it doesn't matter.
I love the gay stereotype of the guy who remembers the Dirty Dancing scene. But it relates perfectly in this situation. It's like, this is my job is to deliver and facilitate.
Yeah.
Your job is to interface with that. So this is not a passive sport.
Right.
Like it's active. Okay, keep on going. I love that.
So co-carries, like again, I've always given them that piece of like, you got to be an active participant. But in the last year, I've really embraced co-carries and assigning.
I can speak to that.
Yeah, with a huge help from Jay. But assigning students really specific roles, things that if you're in this role that's related to healthcare field, so like I have a clinical supervisor, human resources person, a unit coordinator or head nurse kind of thing.
Exactly.
So
and social worker.
Yep.
You also have a social worker.
Day to day, that all those roles have jobs.
Yep.
That they're or things they're responsible for. However, there's also something that I want to move more into next year or this year. Geez, it's going to start on Monday.
Nothing like Jay torturing Kristina the week before school starts. Hey, do you want to come in and just dork out on teaching and learning?
Of course I do.
But of course you do.
But having them have their day-to-day responsibilities, but also having them have responsibilities that are specific to the unit we're in. So if we're doing a unit on communication, their responsibilities for that unit might look different in the human resources role than they look in the urinary system.
Huh. I like that. And that certain roles might be larger. Like you might, a shift supervisor might be much larger in the cardiology unit than a human resources. I mean, you could literally, I'm just thinking about like reproductive system, things like that, where things can get awkward or uncomfortable. Right. And maybe HR, like that really is a larger role for them because you're trying to get them to think about things differently. That's really, I never thought of, that's cool.
Yeah. So, that was.
Do you ever have kids, like, have you yet in this year that you've been doing it more and more, and I've watched that, which is so cool. Anybody complain?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you want to know what you and I both say? Good. Love it. Skill building.
Yeah. You're going to get it.
You're going to get it. And whether you want to do it or not, you're going to do it.
Right. Because you're going to have to do it when you get out there. So let's practice now.
So you have some outright complaining.
Outright complaining. I'll never forget. I have a student who's very high achieving.
Yeah.
And she's a dancer. She works really hard in school and out of school.
Yep, yep.
And she's asked multiple times after having a couple of roles to not have a role. Because I think it's multi-reasoned. Like she doesn't want to kind of be in the spotlight for whatever reason.
Yeah. Even though, or maybe because she is a dancer and has that experience.
Yep. She feels already overwhelmed because she's already so focused with the other things that she does in her life.
Yeah.
Whether it be academic, dancing, stuff at home, whatever. And I think the other piece of it is when she's in our class, she loves the class and she just wants to enjoy the class.
Oh, I want to push back on her, but I also hear like, I hear the human in front of her, like the human in front of you that has it, but also it's like, how do you within that say, okay, I'm not going to take this shift supervisor away from you, but what might it look like for you to do it with less than 100%?
And that
all the time.
Those are the conversations.
You're like, how about you're a little bit more even keeled? Doesn't have to be the person that was the last 3 weeks, how they did it. They maybe were given very rigid notes to everybody at the end of class, whatever it is. Maybe you, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
Maybe for you, once a week, you're writing a quick little note celebrating a student and give it to them in their mailbox.
Exactly.
Guess so your way of doing it.
It is really about having those kind of conversations with students.
Yep.
Whether they're like, I want to roll, I want to roll, I want to roll. And you're like, oh my God, I am not in a headspace to give you this role that you really want because I know how much work that's going to be for me.
Yeah.
to mentor you through that role.
Yep. And that's a real thing here. I do want to say that creating co-carries does ease the experience and smooth the experience, but it doesn't take away and is no work for the teacher. Like I
Yeah.
think that I want to be clear because I'm always pushing the co-carries.
Mm-hmm.
But it is work. It is work to front load it, at least at the very beginning, because like I tell you, I want your units exiting co-carries to be teaching the next
Units
co-carries.
Yeah.
So the more that we can build that this year, I think it's going to start to build itself without it being too much of a heavy lift for you.
I agree. And I think that there's just some things that I want to put in place between units to give space for that, that I think is going to be really helpful. And going to take some of the lift off me. But it's still, some of the lift increases depending on the student.
I also was thinking that maybe there's certain units that you take the role of the co-carry to also model exactly what you want this co-carry to be doing.
Yes.
Or something like that. So it could be kind of an interesting kind of, well, it's going to be an exploration this year. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
All right. So the last of these questions, and we're going to do a quick little parting impact, but how do you build accountable tenacity? Of course, that's a J phrase, if ever there were one, but really this idea that like, you got to have resilience and you're going to be held accountable for that resilience. Right. So, it's kind of the 2.0 version of grit, right?
Yeah.
So how do you build accountable tenacity within your learners? Building executive skills, all that kind of stuff. And what skills have you, and this is the kind of part that I'm most interested, what skills have you been prioritizing? Executive skill. We've done so much talking about executive skills. What have you been noticing that students in front of you are needing skill building around? And how do you hold them accountable to that? Like, what have you been noticing?
I'm going to talk about grace again, but I have very high expectations for my students.
Good.
It is
end of statement. Good.
Right. I also meet them where they're at and give them grace. And again, like I talked about before, grace does not mean a free pass. Grace means I'm going to be beside you so you can work through this, but it doesn't get you off the hook. It doesn't make everything okay. It helps us to explore and gives the time and the space to explore like why you needed that grace for that in that moment. Why you needed
how
that.
do I help you in not needing that grace the next time?
Right.
It's why when you asked at the beginning, what makes my practice expansive? And one of the things I said is that you nail the warm demand.
Yeah.
Unlike 98% of people that I know in education. And like you meeting them where they are, the demand is not changing.
No.
But how can I love you along the way?
Gonna build it up. Gonna build them skills.
We're gonna build them skills, kid. But how am I gonna do that so that you don't always need me by your side to do this?
Right. And how am I gonna create the safety for you in this space for you to feel like it's okay to try?
Yeah.
And it's okay to try and maybe not succeed every single time.
Actually, I would say it's not okay. I hope that you try and sometimes fail.
Right.
Right? Like we do not need more adults out there that either don't know how to fail or don't know how to even try. Like you got to have both of those happening. What was I just gonna say? I was just gonna say something brilliant.
Of course you are.
No. I don't remember what it was, but it was something about about grace. That grace, you just had me thinking about some things today, really even some simple things of teaching versus learning. But the way you're talking about grace, I really appreciate it because I think that we have in the last few years, actually, I think we're coming back from it a little bit, but definitely through COVID. But it wasn't just COVID.
No.
This kind of self-care is a bubble bath idea. And it's like, that's good. Take a bubble bath sometimes.
And
but if you're taking a bubble bath every day and not building your skills, then that's not grace. And I love
No, that's avoidance.
That's avoidance. I love your reminder that grace is not a minimization of the expectations. It's about how I'm going to show up with you as you meet those expectations.
Right.
I really appreciate that, and I want to model that I want to use that phrasing. I love that way of talking about grace, because I think a lot of people hear grace and they hear, oh, he let me off the hook.
Exactly.
Nope, that's not great. That's
No.
actually not grace. That means that the person doesn't give a fuck about you.
Right.
Because if
You
they
tell
give a shit
right.
about you, then excuse my language, I'm going to use multiple swears. But if they give a shit about you,
Yep.
then they're actually going to be a little tough on you.
And I tell my
And hold
students
you
that a
accountable.
lot. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to be a family by the end of this. You're laughing at me right now or looking at me like I'm crazy, but you're going to feel weird not being with these people
Yep.
every day
Yep.
after a year.
I mean, seriously. Well, because uniquely, nowhere,
Yep.
I guess the only other time you've done it was in third, fourth, fifth grade when you're
Mhm.
with the same group of people all day without your choice,
Exactly.
all day. And this is going to be even more fully fleshed, more fully developed, more fully, but also teenage years, like who knows what's going
Oh,
on,
so
kind
many
of like
things.
all the things. And we're going to be together every day for 2 weeks, for 2 hours every day for 100. I mean, that's a long time.
350 hours.
This is the internship you've all been waiting for.
And then the other part I think you were talking about was the executive function skills.
Yes.
So for me, working memory.
Wait, did you just bring me back
Yes,
to the question? Oh, that's hot. I love that.
I'm working on
Mama,
it.
I love it. Thank you.
Working memory, sustained attention, and flexibility.
Those are the three that you're like, most, if not all kids are needing at least one of those right
if
now.
not all of them.
Say it again.
Working
Flexibility,
memory,
working memory, working memory,
sustained attention,
sustained attention.
and flexibility.
Got it. And flexibility doesn't mean like limber, I can do my splits, although that's fun. It means that I can adjust my expectations based on the reality of the circumstance. I can, shift from one thing to the next.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest part of flexibility that I'm noticing.
Yeah.
Is kids can be very rigid.
Yep.
In flowing from, we're working in the classroom right now.
Mhm.
You have 15 minutes to work on your vocabulary.
Yep.
And then we're going into the lab.
And 15 minutes does not mean 20 minutes. It means 15
No, it
minutes.
means
So at 13,
15.
start to close down your
Exactly.
work. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so I've just noticed that students have a really hard time staying appropriately focused. So not necessarily that it's all trouble focusing, but it's appropriately focused.
It's what we call effective effort. Like, are you
Right.
focusing in the right way?
Exactly. They might be hyper focused on getting their vocabulary done, so much so that I'm like, okay, guys, we've been transitioning for 5 minutes now. Like, we need to be transitioned from the class to the lab in 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Like,
you need to be able to transition.
Yeah, you need to be able
You have to
be like,
and I would
well,
imagine that emotional control. I mean, emotional control when you're being pushed to de-rigidify,
right.
Is also another one.
Yeah.
Even if these are 16, 17, 18-year-old students, they still are demonstrating some lack of emotional control.
And it comes out in like the attitude or the defensiveness, as opposed to like throwing a fit or something like that.
They're not going to look like a 7-year-old, but
Right.
that doesn't mean they're any less out of control.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And just like that transitioning between activities, all while encoding information. Students have a really hard time with, like, they sat down for 15 minutes and did this vocabulary exercise and then moved into the lab to do this hand washing exercise, and then we're all going to come back together to debrief. I find that like the transition is hard. The flexibility is hard.
And that they've almost like compartmentalized the first vocabulary when they went off to do the hand washing.
Yes. And then we come back and we're asking questions about both pieces and like the interaction of those two pieces. And it's almost just like, what?
Yeah. How do you, so what would you recommend to the teacher who is trying to figure out how to help their kids encode over multiple activities? Like what would you do? I mean, that's where color coding, that's where the encoding, handwritten, all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I did today? I'm going to ask you a question, then I'm going to give you an answer. Okay. No, but I liked it at the end. So today I facilitated a class where we talked about the sort of overarching plan. And then I had them look at their why. I had them look at their why, but I had them we looked at the brain.
Yep.
We looked at a very specific new, I'll talk to you about this at some other point, but a new workshop model 2.0, and then language development.
Okay.
So in the circle at the end, I had them, the mindfulness, instead of it being a breathing or grounding, I had them bring up each of those four silently in their head, like with their why. I said, I want you to say aloud the why that you had just written on the banner. And then the next one was the brain. Bring that image into your head. What's one or two words that are still sitting with you from the brain from earlier? And then not sharing anything.
Yep.
And then workshop model. Okay.
Mhm.
I want you to bring yourself back to the lesson you created in your favorite moment. There was that I do, you do, we do, or reflection.
Mhm.
What was that for yourself? And then the fourth was language domains. And I said, think back in your lesson where you had receptive, where you had interpretive, where you had expressive. And that total experience took a minute
That's amazing.
for them. And I don't need to hear every single thing all the time, but just bring it up in your head. Just imagine it. And I'm encoding and I'm like having them re-access it. So I wonder how that could be a little bit of that. Like before we actually fully transition, everybody stop, pause. Eyes closed is on offer, but I want you to imagine the this, the this, the this, or whatever, like.
I think the other thing that does is allow that person to personally encode those things, where I feel like when we do the share outs, like, okay, well, what was it for you? And we go all the way around the room.
Who can do it eloquently? Who can do it the best? Who can show that they know the best?
Well, and even
it's between you and you.
It's just like, okay, well, this is what I did, and now I'm taking in all these other ideas of how other people did this thing. So now I have 20 ideas to think about instead of really focusing on what I
You've
did.
actually almost escalated and dysregulated me in the process of debriefing.
Yes.
Which is good for me to think about. In terms of debriefing, let's dive into the debrief. It's kind of my fast round, but a little bit of a fast round of 3 questions that I want to hear from. And I really would love to hear this from everybody that I am in contact with. So we all have, I think, as Josh Rapoon talks about, somebody who I follow and I really, really love his work on what school could be. We all have giants, on whose shoulders we stand, who are kind of in the room with us when we are teaching. So who is this for you? And just share a quick little impactful experience that you had with this person who is kind of a giant in the room with you.
Okay. So when I knew I wanted to become a teacher, I was asked to come in and share about neonatal intensive care unit nursing in this classroom that I now teach in.
I knew it was going to be her. It's who I'm thinking of, right? Okay, cool.
So the teacher
who I met, had gifted meeting at the wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, so great, so great.
An incredible human. So I came in, gave this talk, and it just fell in love. And she is the teacher that I always want to be. She's just incredible. And not only is she an incredible teacher, but her and her husband were my first relationship in my life that I can really identify as being wholly honest.
Them with each other or them with you?
Them with each other and them with me.
Yeah.
Wholly honest and the warm demand. They really kind of took me in a very special way that made me feel like I was really important and that I was worthy and really special. Really, really special.
So I know that we said that we're not going to, but if you feel okay to, can we bring her name in to this conversation? What's her name?
Tori Lambert.
Tori Lambert?
Yep. And her husband's name is Ted Arnold, and he passed away a few years ago. He's an artist, or was an artist, and can find his work different places, including Jay's house and mine.
Amazing. Tori Lambert, clearly you have built a rock star and clearly done good work yourself.
And thank you.
What book, show, podcast, experience, would you recommend for a teacher looking to build a unique and impactful learning experience? What would you say is everybody should have this, everybody should watch this, or this one episode, or this, what is it?
So we're going to get super corny.
Okay.
And I think everyone should subscribe to your podcast.
Okay.
Because uh, Jay has been an incredibly impactful person in my life over the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mine.
I have accelerated my game in the classroom and my personal life as a direct correlation to our relationship.
Thank you.
I think you're brilliant, and I think you have so much to offer the world.
I love you.
I love you too.
I love you. I actually feel you see me in a way that, even though I'm coach, teacher, right? Like you see me in a way that makes me feel more fully alive, and as if I get to trust my gut.
Good.
Which is really,
because you
which
should.
is pretty great. Which is pretty great.
It's a good
Thank
bet.
you. Thank you. TheLearningRiot.com. And then, okay, so this is just your kind of send the teachers out with like, what's that thing? So there's many, you could focus on 1,000 things, right? And we only have a limited amount of time in a year, right? Kind of like you think about that, the vessel, the water jug that you have, it doesn't increase. It is a glass jug that is going to be this big. You only have that much time. What's the one thing you would have educators prioritize? One thing, if they had to choose one thing to hone in on. And why would this be a surefire strategy? Like, why is this one thing they focus on the way that they are going to build a community filled with compassion, willingness, achievement,
It's one thing, but it's a big thing with many pieces to it, and it's executive function. It is everything.
Yeah, it is.
It is everything. It is in everything we do. And it is having well-developed executive functions or awareness of where your shortfalls are
100%.
in executive function is, I truly believe, the most impactful thing any of us can do for our kids. It is truly,
It's the work.
it is the work. It is helping. Work with executive function is helping students to understand themselves, which will help them be a better human and have more impact on their world.
And will enable them to then find their joy, have more likeliness of finding their joy, being able to work and do the work they want to do that brings them that joy and that balance. Like I've said in the past to kids, actually, often, they will talk about emotions or big feelings or reactions. And I will say, there is no difference between, let's say, the teacher and when I was an assistant principal, right? Like there's really no difference between people. We all have emotions. Some of us are just better at interacting with our emotions in a way that doesn't get us in trouble.
Exactly.
So I feel like executive function skills is like, hey, figure out your game, learn how to feel it all, learn how to do it, all that, but also kind of maintain a sense of composure, a sense of like being able to lean into your life, and you'll have more joy. Yeah, for sure. In the end. 100%. Kristina Lewis, I love you so much. I love you so much. You are the best. May I give you a hug? Of course. What a gift. So good. What is such a gift, man. Great. First podcast. We did it. Recorded. Done. High five. All right.